this content. All right, well, my name is Jenna Lashudo Simmons. I work here at the Olin Career Center, and I serve as our manager of the job search area, which means really making sure that our coaches have everything they need to support you and make sure that you're able to get to where you want to be with your career and building your resume and thinking about the job search. And this topic is a really good one for right now because we are in this very unique virtual space, right? We're on our computers all the time. We're tapping into technology regularly, but a lot of times it's different than what we thought of the job search, right? Like it's not the face-to-face conversations with an employer that you thought you were going to get to meet on campus, or not the face-to-face interview going to a company's site like you maybe thought would happen in the past. So we're going to talk through how do you use technology throughout your search really to your advantage. So I'm going to start with a really quick poll. And I know we just did some great introductions, but it's just a couple of quick little questions if you want to just answer those about how did you hear about the workshop today? And then how do you feel about using technology right now? If you were going to search for a position soon or tomorrow, or how would you feel about that? Would you feel really comfortable, really uncomfortable, all that good stuff? Awesome. Thanks for responding. I see a couple of responses popping in. Okay. Looks like everyone who shared here. Thanks so much for sharing. And hopefully you can see now on the screen, but looks like LSU faculty, staff, awesome. And then pretty neutral. Okay. So hopefully by the end, you'll have a few more strategies to feel like you know a little bit more about how do you use technology in search? What role does it play? So thanks so much for sharing. Let's dive into some of those strategies to get started. Okay, so I kind of feel like we have to start with Handshake, just because Handshake is the tool that we use, that you all use to register to get here today. And there are a couple of specific things that I want to show you on Handshake. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can actually pull up Handshake and we can look at it a little bit together. I dropped the slide, so if you want to pull up Handshake and kind of go along with the tutorial, you are more than welcome to. So let me share and we will start looking at Handshake. Okay. Y'all see this okay? Okay, perfect. So this is what it looks like when you log into Handshake. Usually there are a couple kind of tricks to searching for positions on Handshake, as well as like navigating to find certain things. So that's kind of what I want to point out specifically. There's lots of other great features, but I'm just going to show you a few that I think are more about using this when you're looking at positions and you're starting to think about opportunities that you want to find. So let's start with going to this first option here, this job section. If you've looked at it before, you're like, okay, it looks like job search that you might use like Indeed or Google, something like that. One reason that we do recommend this is that employers who come to us at the Career Center, sometimes even our faculty and staff, we're highly recommending to them to post their opportunities on Handshake so that they can reach you. And so it looks a little bit different than maybe a position you find on Google, because these are employers that often have said, we want to talk to LSU students and we want to recruit them. So that's one reason that Handshake does look a little bit different, and one reason to try it in your search, because these are employers that want you. There's a couple other features that are really nice in here too. If you ever do want an on-campus position, obviously that's here, but I know a lot of people talking about maybe internships, full-time jobs, some more off-campus stuff. One great thing to know, you can use the keyword search function, but sometimes I do find that the filters will give you a lot more options. So it's great to use the filters button right here and then really do a lot of selecting to pare down what's going to be a good fit for you. You can by all means do your major here, but I would recommend also do industry and do employers. So that way you get a little bit more of a narrow focus. If you just do major, some employers might have said, hey, we'll take any major. And so you're going to get this odd assortment of just random jobs, like a marketing job, this other job that does not apply to you at all. So make sure if you do major, do that in addition to industry and employers so that you're kind of paring that down a little bit more. You can also do job role. That tends to be a good one to pare it down even more. And I would always recommend hitting paid roles only so you don't get any volunteer positions popping up. There's not a ton on here that are volunteer, but sometimes you'll see an unpaid internship. So I would just make sure you're hitting that if you are looking for paid positions. Okay, I'm going to move forward now, but those are just a few things that I'll see a lot is people using the keywords, not finding tons of things. And so I usually do say, let's swap over to filters. Usually you're going to find a little bit more that way. One other good thing to know is under the events tab, events are going to give you everything, right? So like this workshop today, things the Career Center puts on, and things that pertain to employers, where an employer might say, we'd love to hire students, we're going to post our job on Handshake, but then we also want to make sure that we're doing something to engage with them. Maybe we're doing an info session, maybe we're doing a workshop. So employers are able to come in here and post different events that they're doing. You'll see Facebook has their data challenge. So if you're interested in working with Facebook, this can be a great virtual session to attend to start getting to know more about the employer. So really good way to start connecting with employers a little bit more through some kind of a virtual session. Most right now are going to be completely virtual. And so Handshake is going to have all that information. They'll either email you a link, or a lot of times they'll have it posted in here. So kind of like today's session where you got that automatic email and then one reminder, they might have something like that where they're sharing that information. I like a lot of these too, like open houses might be a great way just to get a gauge on what is this company all about? What the Peace Corps is about, what they do, asking those questions. So much different than like a fair setting might be, which we'll look at that in one second. But overall, events are a really good thing to look through, see if there are some employers that you might want to position with, and that can start giving you some insight that's going to be really helpful in your application, writing a cover letter saying, here's specifically why I want to work for you. Make those connections in advance by attending events, connecting with employers as much as you can, and that's really going to help just make you stand out from other folks. So this piece of Handshake is one not to skip over because I think it's easy just to use the jobs function, but don't forget that this is here. This is a really cool one. And then when you click career fair, of course, that's going to give you all of our upcoming career fairs. And we have a bunch. If you've never looked through, there's just a million of them. And they're usually more based on like colleges, majors, those kind of areas. So that way you don't have to go to 5 different ones. You might pick 2 or 3 that are pretty similar to what you want to do, and then go and talk to employers at those areas. You could go to all of them if you wanted. Sounds like a lot, but if that's something you want to do, go for it. And with all of these, we have a lot of stuff we send out about it, but basically you go in, you click register, and then you're able to actually start going in and picking out different sessions that you want. And so anyways, that's really helpful. They give you like a little survey. I'm kind of filling this out as if I'm a student. And so it's saying, hey, you've registered. And then it's going to pull up and I actually get to go to the sessions and pick out my sessions. So registration is kind of like a 2-step, hit register, and then you go through and say, oh, I really want to talk to Deloitte, or I really want to talk to whatever employer. And then you're able to select dates and times with them. So, and that's the world's quickest overview to Handshake, but we can definitely revisit this if y'all have any questions. I do want to go back to our slides so we can move through talking a little bit about networking, social media, because those are kind of the 2 big pieces of technology that I want to talk through. And then we'll move to questions. Okay. So networking. Networking is absolutely key. And so that's why if you said you're here and you're like, I'm not really searching yet, but this sounded interesting, I'm so glad because you can get a kickstart on this. If you're looking for a full-time job, it is by no means too late. You have a network already because it's just the people you know, the people you're in connection with. And so really networking can just help to make sure you get opportunities because you are building a relationship with others, and it can help you obtain things that aren't necessarily posted for the masses out there for everyone to see. And so I really love for people to start thinking about how can I network? How can I find people to get plugged into? And digitally, there are a lot of ways to network. It's a little bit different than what we think of, but I promise you there are such good ways to get connected with people. I put a couple of things here The virtual career fairs that we just looked at, of course, an opportunity. I know it's hard to be on Zoom more than you have to be, like you're already on Zoom all the time, but student organizations, like if they have meetings and events that are in your field area, take advantage of those. A lot of times they might even bring employers in. So that's a really good way just to be meeting people and meeting peers who maybe had an internship somewhere you want to work full time. So things like that, just be really aware of like who's in Zoom rooms with you that you can send a little message to or say, hey, can I get your email? I know you said you did an internship here. It'd be really helpful for me just to connect with you. So many other students are more than happy to help you get connected with employers too. Of course, like things like virtual conferences, some of those are free for students right now. So if you're in, I know someone said, I think maybe finance or something in business, right? So you can always Google finance virtual conferences free. And you'd be surprised how many will pop up. And like I said, a lot of them right now might be free for students or just because pandemic, it's a very strange situation. So anyways, great thing to Google and just see what all is out there. Of course, people who you already know, like your friends, family members, always just put it out to people what you're looking for. You'd be surprised how many people will say, oh, I don't do that or, really know much about it, but I have a friend who does something that sounds exactly like that and I'll get you guys connected. And so that's a really neat way just to be able to make sure you have that connection point. It's just putting it out to people go from there, see what they have to say. We'll talk about social media in a minute, and informational interviewing will also come up in a minute. So those are a couple of good strategies that you can use. So these do have links. For time's sake, I'm not going to get into them, but these are two of my absolute favorite things on LinkedIn. If you don't use LinkedIn, I promise it's not as intimidating as it sounds. I think a lot of people see LinkedIn and they're like, I don't have one and I don't really know what to do with this. So build a profile, use your resume to do it. And it's going to be something that can be really, really helpful for you because it really is a great way to see who are other people in the field and who are these people. How can you kind of get connected with them? And the alumni tool basically shows you all of the LSU alum on LinkedIn and you can get connected with them on there, right? Like you might see someone that you're like, oh, they've worked in my industry. Let me see what they've done, what kind of jobs they've had, what internship helped them to get the job that I want. So those are really cool ways to be able to both connect with alumni, to ask them questions about what they do, or just to see what are some career paths that they had and some employers that they worked for. So that one I highly recommend. Take a look at that link if you have a chance later on. And then groups. Groups are really neat because it's all these people on LinkedIn and you join a group. It's kind of like a Facebook group. You can post in there, you can put comments in there, but it's really around different industries. It could be around a location like young professionals in New Orleans. So you've got all these different groups where you're able to join them, you're able to post in there and see other posts from people who might be looking to hire someone, which is really neat. So groups and alumni tool, if you've never heard of these, those are direct links to those on LinkedIn. So you don't have to figure out where they are. It'll take you straight to it if you just click on those links. And I'll drop the slides in again at the end. So if you want to re-download them or if you missed it earlier, you've got it. Okay. So I did want to note social media, make sure that you do a little Google search of yourself. If you never have, it's very informative on like what's out there on the internet. But it's great to eliminate some of the negative stuff that you might see or just see, is there anything more negative? I know that a lot of times there's just little things that you forgot that you were tagged in. So maybe untagging yourself if there's a photo that you're like, okay, this shows something that really isn't super professional that I don't want an employer to see. And on the flip side, showcase more positive things. What can you be posting or reposting on Twitter or LinkedIn or whatever social media that you use that shows a more professional image? You can also just adjust privacy settings. Know that whatever you put on the internet, of course, is fair game. Someone could screenshot, but in general, that does help if you have some more personal private things you might want to share that you do want to kind of keep more within your circle. Make sure you just adjust privacy settings for that. So in general, think about this, look at it, see what's out there for employers to go and look at. A lot of employers are doing that. Some fields more than others, but in general, this is something you want it to be a positive presence. Okay, so this just has a couple like online job boards. We talked through Handshake and some of these are more general, but a couple of tips when you are looking online, when you're looking through a job board, there's a ton out there. So the best thing that you can do is try to identify what exactly are you searching for. This link is to ONET. This is really helpful because it can help you know what titles to use, like what are some keywords. They have listings of like, let's say you put in chemist. They'll have a list of all of these other titles that you could go by. Even if you are maybe a chemist, there may be different professional titles that are used at different companies. So it offers you some suggestions on that. And it's a really good one just to give you some keywords to alternate through. Another good tip, check every day, be patient. You can get alerts from a lot of these places, Handshake included, of like employers that you really want to make sure you're updated if they do have anything that gets posted, but that's a great option. And then check professional association websites. Again, that same thing of Google marketing professional associations. You may already know which ones are for your field, but if you don't, that's going to give you a few that you can start checking, looking at and seeing, okay, what is out there? What can I really look at to be able to tap into some of these things and find more positions for my industry? The very last piece I'll mention is technology is also helpful, not just for the search itself, but beyond that for saying, how do I fit into some of these places? How do I identify where is going to be a good fit for me? And it feels harder to do now because we're not able to see it, right? Like we might not be in person with that employer, with that recruiter to really get a certain vibe from them of how their company is or what it really looks like there. But we can look at certain things like for someone, it could be a huge value of, I want a laid back, fun work environment. I want it to feel like fun, like people like each other. And so maybe they go check Instagram and they see a story of employees still doing fun things in a virtual setting, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, right? Like that's just a great indicator, a little clue of maybe this is more of that laid back, fun work environment that I am looking for. So these are just some examples like checking LinkedIn to see, oh, they've done community involvement projects in the past, if that's a value you have, or checking news articles to say, oh, look, what a great new efficiency process that they've added. If you really like a structured environment, that's great to see. And then the last one, looking at their mission and value statement. Maybe that says something about how invested they are in their employees. And your goal is like, I want to grow, like I want to stay somewhere where they're invested in me. So all these things are really good, but in general, figure out what are your values, and then you can go look for them within social media, on their website, of course, talking to people who work there, but these are just a few ideas of how do you see that online using technology. Okay, one more quick poll, and then I want to hear all of your questions. Okay, so you should see two quick questions, just asking that same question. What are your thoughts now on using technology to search? And then what do you feel like you need? If you needed another workshop like this, what would be the best topic for you? What really fits for you? Just a few minutes to think about that. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. Looks like some folks feel a little more comfortable now than they did. A couple of folks mentioned maybe how to negotiate salary. Yeah, that's a big one. And expect that question maybe to come up even in your search process in the application. A lot of times it says, what do you kind of expect as far as salary? So thanks so much for sharing these. You can kind of see those popping up on your screen. All right, so I'm going to pause on the recording because I would love to.